Good morning, everyone. Enmanji Temple. Would you like to start with some Buddhist jokes? I think that's very important. So, sometimes we are a bit shy to talk to other people that are not part of our tradition about what Buddhism is. So you can always tell them these good Buddhist jokes. And I've told them to you before. So if you know the answer, you can yell it out. Okay. Why did the Buddha not vacuum underneath the couch? Because he had no attachments. So you got to think about these jokes a little bit, right? Vacuum attachments? Okay. All right, let's try to do a little better. Just a couple more. Okay. What did the Buddha say to the hot dog vendor? Make me one with everything. We're all interconnected. You get it? Okay, we're moving up. Okay. But what did the hot dog vendor say to the Buddha when he asked him for his change? He said, change comes from within. Okay. So if you don't remember anything else about my Dharma talk today, I hope you remember those 3 Buddhist jokes, okay, that you can tell your friends. As our wonderful chairperson mentioned today is our very special Buddhist holiday, right? It's our Honko service, right? And as she mentioned, Honko is the day that we remember the death of Shinran Shonin, the founder of our sect of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. Now, Honko can be celebrated in November, like we are doing today, at the end of November, usually somewhere around November 28th. And that's actually based on the old lunar calendar, kind of an older calendar. So there are other Nishi Honganji temples that actually celebrate Honganji in January because they use the Western, I think it's called the Gregorian calendar, and that's usually celebrated on January 16th. So have you seen that ever? Have you seen temples that do the Osaji service, that memorial service, every 16th of every month, not just in January, but on the 16th, no matter what day it is, they always do a service and they will chant Shoshinge from Shinran Shonin's work. So that's 2 different ways of celebrating. But today, we are celebrating Honko in recognition of the old lunar calendar, right? And Honko means to repay a debt of gratitude. To repay a debt of gratitude. And that was such an interesting definition when I thought about it, because when I think about Honko as a memorial service for Shinran, I think of Buddhist memorial services, right? And memorial services are such an important part of our Buddhist tradition, a very important part. Because our memorial services are not just a time when we're supposed to just feel sadness, right? Of course, that's a part of it, but that's not the main reason that we have memorial services. In fact, the main reason we have it is at the memorial service, it's a time to look back and remember the person that we have lost. And we want to feel truly grateful for having that person in our lives. That's why we have our memorial service. And it's difficult to feel gratitude at this time, right? It's hard to feel gratitude at a time that we're suffering such a deep and profound loss, especially if it's a loved one or a dear friend. So it doesn't seem natural to feel gratitude. But in Buddhism, instead of focusing on the loss part, instead of focusing on the loss of the loved one, we want to focus on that time that we had with them. How fortunate we are, how lucky we are to have ever even had that person in our lives. So instead of focusing on, oh no, I'll never be with them again, I'll never see them again, I'll never hear their voice again. Instead of focusing on that, we will focus on how fortunate I was to even have that person in my life. How fortunate I was that our lives crossed paths, right? And all the infinite combinations that our life course could have taken us. So no matter how brief or how long you've known that person, we still aspire to feel that deep gratitude. So, as we remember Shinran Shonin on this day, you know why I keep pointing here, right? That's Shinran over there. Okay. You want to reach your hand. So, as we remember Shinran Shonin on this day, it's amazing, right? Because what are we celebrating this year about Shinran Shonin? We're celebrating that. You've heard the 850th. You're hearing that number, right? 850th, and you hear 800, right? So 850th is celebrating the birth of Shinran Shonin, 850 years, and then 800 years is how long Jodo Shinshu has been established, right? So that's a long time, 8 centuries. So it's important to know that Shinran Shoni, we keep talking about how important he is, but Shinran Shoni, I would argue, wouldn't even be important in history without his wife, right? We know that his wife, Eshini, she was the one. Shinran was just a poor monk, right? He went to Mount Hiei when he was young, and he didn't really have anything. And then, as you all know, that's where he met Honen, his teacher, and he started learning a different way than the strict Tendai, Buddhist tradition. He learned another way, and that was recitation of the Nembutsu, saying Namo Amitabutsu. So, but Shinran was a poor guy. He was kind of broke, but he met Eshini, his wife. Now, she came from a family of means. She was with a family that was kind of high-ranking in society, and they had assets, and they had land, which was, a rare thing back then. So luckily, he met her, and when he renounced all of his, monk priesthood from Tendai, he's like, I'm out of here, man. We're not going to do this priest stuff anymore. He became more of a layperson. That's when he became married. And luckily, he married Eshini. And because she had land and wealth and assets, he was able to continue his pursuits of studying and his pursuit of seeking the Nembutsu path. Otherwise, he'd have to get a job, right? He'd have to get a job, but he couldn't keep studying like this. So and we all talk about this, Eshini, such an important part of his life. And as you know, a lot of that history from 800 years ago is not quite, solidified. It's a little bit gray. It's a little bit hazy. And the only reason we even know for sure that Eshini and these people even existed was because of all the letters they wrote to each other. So scholars recently found those letters to prove that Eshini really existed. And it was that style of, those letters, and that's what really made us learn about their history. So, another important woman in Shinran's life was, of course, who? Who's the other one? The daughter, right? So, Eshini was important because she had the land, but as Shinran neared the end of his life, because Shinran lived from, 1173 to 1263, so he lived till 90 years old, which at that time, very rare, right? Very rare to live that long at that time. So he lived to 90 years old. So towards the end of his life, towards the later years of his life, he and Eshini actually went in different directions because she had to go take care of the estate and stuff like that, and he stayed where he was to teach. And his daughter, the youngest daughter, Kakushimi, the youngest daughter took care of Shinran, helped him out. Because, he was an older person at that time. So she really stayed with her father, Shinran Shoni, and nurtured him, and probably had countless conversations with him, and they talked about their Dharma together and their Jodo Shinshi path. So Kakushimi carried on her mother's legacy. And it was after Shinran Shoni passed away that Kakushimi really built the mausoleum, the place where Shinran's ashes were held. And that is what became Honganji. And that is the mother temple, the mother temple of our sect of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. So all of that happened due to those factors in his life. So Shinran's popularity grew even more after his death. If he was a TikTok star, he wouldn't have that many views while he was alive, But after he died, he went viral and got millions and millions of views. And that was because of Eshini and Kakushimi, right? Isn't that amazing? So amazing to me. I think it's amazing. So, when I think of how random these encounters are, how a random chance encounter can change the course of your life. When you think about all the encounters you've had, you can't remember every encounter you've had with every random person. It's infinite, right? It's impossible. It's thousands and thousands. But some encounters are very brief and seemingly insignificant, but other encounters might be very impactful, might really change your life, might really change the way you think or feel. And even though an encounter might be insignificant to us, just remember, that encounter might mean something very much more to that other person. You may not even realize it, right? So I remember when I was a young Boy Scout, probably about 12 years old, and we'd go to scout camp, right? And then you would take merit badges, right? Those are the little badges that you earn, and you put, it's just like this, it's a sash. We wear a sash, same thing. But we put the patches on. So I took this one class called personal management. And I'll never forget, the instructor was Marty Matsuda, and he was just one of the scout parents. And part of this class talked about personal finance as well. And he taught us about just basic things like money market, savings account, and CDs, certificate of deposit. This looks like a CD group to me right here, huh? You guys like CDs, I bet, huh? You don't like investing in the stock market. So I like a CD, a fixed rate of return. I know, fixed, right? So, but he told me about this. He taught us about this as young kids. And he said, you can put money in, whatever, $100, and at the end of a term, 1 year, or whatever it is, depending upon what the interest rate was, maybe they give you back $103. And I know to you that's so obvious, all right? But when I learned about this at 12 years old, it blew my mind. You mean to tell me you could just put your money somewhere and do absolutely nothing? Like you're not working, you're not doing anything, and then you just wait and you get more money back? I thought it was the world's best kept secret. I didn't know it was common knowledge. And he thought he was just teaching a basic finance class. But for me, as a young, wide-eyed 12-year-old kid, man, that made me feel like I was on the top of the... I'm like, I'm a genius! Nobody else knows this. I'm going to be rich. Well, it didn't work, but anyway. But to Marty, right, he didn't think anything of it. But for me, that actually sparked my interest in finance and business and all of those different things. And later on in life, I became a business owner. I owned a restaurant for many years. I even dabbled in the financial advisory field. I got all my licenses. And to this day, Marty's still a Temple member. He's a board member. So whenever I introduce people to Marty, I'll be like, hey, this is Marty Matsuda. He taught me my first merit badge class when I was 12 years old and started my interest in finance. So I tell him that. And he doesn't even really remember. He just kind of smiles and laughs. But he made a huge impact on me, right? What an interesting example of just a random encounter for him, a brief connection for him, but so impactful in my life. So remember, do you remember what I said Hongo means? I said the definition of Hongo. Good thing you're recording it, they can watch it later. Anybody remember? Straight A students? Hongo means to repay a debt of gratitude. To repay the debt of gratitude. So we talk a lot about gratitude, of course, Joshishu, always gratitude. But we don't talk about the repayment part, what that means. Feeling gratitude is wonderful and it's a fundamental aspect of teaching Buddhism. But because when you're feeling grateful, you're focusing your mind and heart on outward, right? When you're being grateful, you're focusing outward. You're being selfless. When you're not being grateful and you want, you're thinking inward. You're being selfish, right? So what does it mean to repay a debt of gratitude? Especially if we want to repay that debt of gratitude to someone we've lost, to someone we passed away. You can't pay them back, right? So this is what I believe this to mean. Since we can't pay them back, I think in their honor, we should pay it forward. And so that's my challenge to all of us today. Let's go beyond just feeling grateful and acknowledging gratitude. Let's go beyond that. And let's try to pay it forward. Let's repay those feelings of gratitude. And we can do this by putting just positive energy and compassionate energy out into the world. So when I say pay, I don't mean pay, like with your CD interest. I mean pay it forward with positivity and compassionate attitude. It doesn't have to be huge necessarily. It doesn't have to be anything crazy or grand. It can just be an attitude, a smile, a gesture, whatever it is. But if you put that positivity out in their memory, isn't that the most wonderful way you can honor someone? I have some, sorry, I'm not here that often, so you got to hear all my stories, okay? So I was at the grocery store yesterday. I wish I could, I have a picture of it, I wish I could show you, but I went to the grocery store, and I went to the potatoes, right? And it said, russet potatoes, 5 pounds, $2.99, right? 5 pounds, $2.99. That's pretty cheap for potatoes, right? Right next to it, it said 10 pounds, $1.99. もったいないね. I don't need 10 pounds of potatoes. It's just me and my wife now. But of course, I still bought the 10 pounds. But the point is I was so confused. I was sitting there with my cart in front of the potato stack. I was like, I just couldn't wrap my head around what was happening. Was it the same potato? Russet. Is it a trick? Do you have to, adopt something? I don't know. So adopt a puppy if you buy the 10 pounds. So I was sitting there for a long time blocking the potatoes. And this lady walks up to me and goes, excuse me. And I'm like, I'm analyzing the potato deal here, okay? I'm busy. And she looked at me, excuse me. I'm like, lady. Now, I could have got irritated and said, wait your turn. I'm going to get my potatoes, wait your turn. But instead, I just went, hey, isn't this weird that you can buy 10 pounds for $2 and 5 pounds for $3? And then her whole attitude changed. Instead of, excuse me, she went, oh yeah, good catch. Like that. And then she started talking to me, and we both went, well, let's get the 10 pounds. And I put the 10 pound in her cart for her, boom, and I took mine. Now, I know that's just a silly little example, right? But in our everyday lives, how easy is it to get irritated with someone and show a bad attitude? It's so easy. You know why we do that? It's because we don't know their intention, and we assume the worst. She said, excuse me, why can't you wait? Be more patient, right? Who knows what she was thinking? Maybe she was in a rush. Maybe there was a mashed potato emergency that she needed to get to. I don't know. But if you shift your attitude to like, you know what, man, she's cool, it's okay, and then you chit-chat a little bit, and that attitude changes, look at how that whole interaction completely changed. And she's like, hey, good thinking, kid, like that, and she walked away. And that could have been a very different interaction. I remember, too, I was in line at the Asian market, and there's a gentleman in front of me, and he had a bunch of stuff in his cart. I only had 2 things. I had one salmon, grilled salmon, and bulgogi. You guys know what bulgogi marinade is? So I had the bulgogi and salmon. So I did that, and he goes, oh, do you want to go in front of me? And I went, no, that's okay. I'm not in a rush. He had a big old cart full of stuff. I'm chilling, man. It's all good. And he was in front of me, and of course he gets there, and the lady scans it, and he goes, no. Those salmon heads are not $7.95 pound. It should be $2.95 pound. And she goes, and then she left, and she had to walk all the way back to the fish counter, get the price check. And then I'm thinking to myself, God, I could have went ahead of this guy. I'd be done by now, right? Oh, silly me, right? Silly me. But I couldn't be mad because he offered me to go ahead, and I said, no, don't worry. But instead, as she was gone, I said, hey, do you make soup with the salmon heads? And then he turned around and got all excited. Yeah, I make soup. I like to put vegetables inside. I like to do this. Oh, yeah, it's just me and my wife. And then I started talking to him. And then I go, hey, have you ever had bulgogi sauce before? This is the best sauce ever. And then we just started talking and chatting and passing the time. And before you knew it, the cashier came back, adjusted his correct price. And he goes, yes, I knew the salmon head was $2.95. I knew it. And then they rang him up. And as he left, he goes, hey, my name's Bo. Nice to meet you. I go, hey, I'm Koichi. Nice to meet you, buddy. And again, that could have been a situation where I would have just been annoyed, not mad at him, mad at why didn't I go ahead of him? Why didn't I go? I could have left. But instead, we shifted our attitude. We shifted the energy that we put out into the world. And look what happened. He returned that same energy. And he was so happy he introduced himself to me. I'm not saying we're going to be best friends and exchange Christmas gifts, but isn't that just a nice interaction? Just so pleasant, and you feel good. And you're like, hey man, I'm not in a rush. Let's all slow down. It's all good. So those are just wonderful things. I think it's important for us to extend compassion to strangers. It's important for us to be careful too, because not all strangers have good intentions. So I don't want to put that out there and then you give away your life savings. Don't give your CDs to strangers. Never. But what I mean is, in general, if it's a harmless interaction and, you're in a safe place and position, how wonderful it is to put forth a nice attitude. This is just one more, since you're here. One more. I was eating, my wife and I were eating breakfast at this place, and it had patio dining outside, patio seating, and it was on a weekend. And I remember because this large group of people came in with t-shirts, and I think it was one of those, like a 5K cancer walk, because they all had t-shirts on. There's a photo of a woman on front of the shirt. So I'm sure this was one big, large family, on that Saturday that just finished their walk and they were dining outside all together. And at one point they had a lot of mimosas, right? Because it was Saturday, so they're drinking mimosas and they're memory. And at one point, this lady just got up and started singing. And I know you don't know this song, but do you know Mary J. Blige, I'm Going Down? Okay, I turned to the one. Okay. But she just started singing at the top of her lungs, I'm going down. Like she was just singing, dude. And she was just letting it go from the heart. And the doors were closed. I could hear her through the door. And it was actually just beautiful. It was powerful. Some of the people on the patio, they clapped after her too. And as we finished our breakfast and we're leaving the restaurant, we paid, and they were still there, this big group of strangers, right? And I just went up to her and I just went, Mary J. Blige, like that. I just went, Mary J. And she just smiled from ear to ear, and I just walked up to her and I just gave her a big old hug. Complete stranger. Because I knew she was in an emotional moment, right? They were singing, they were feeling something. And that feeling came out, and it just came out and washed over everyone and everything. And as a stranger, we could just walk by without a comment, without a care. But I just wanted to say, I hear you. I hear you. I see you. I feel you. And that's it. Like I said, we're not going to exchange Christmas gifts either this year with her. But I think it's wonderful for us to take that extra step sometimes, right? Sometimes we're very shy, keep to ourselves. You don't want to get in other people's business. But I don't know. I think it's wonderful to put out positive energy. And that's what I think of when I think of gratitude. If I think of gratitude for Shinran Shoni or for those that have passed away, I think what better way to honor them than to put out that wonderful positive energy into the world. And that will make the world just a better place. And we hope that passes on forward. So again, that's my challenge for all of you today on Honko. Not just Honko, every day, right? But especially on Honko time. Let's go beyond just feeling grateful. And let's repay those feelings of gratitude by putting that positive and compassionate energy back out into the world. And remember, it doesn't have to be anything huge or grand. It can just be a feeling, a small attitude, a smile, or even a small gesture. But whatever it is, let's keep putting that positive energy out into the world with no expectation, right? With no expectation. So please join me in closing the show. In reflecting upon the life of Shinran Shoni, we realize that we are all connected as human beings. The things we do and say may have a tiny effect on others, or the effect could be profound. So let us honor Shinran Shoni by making sure our actions are positive and compassionate. And let us try to spread light from one person to another to make our world a better place. Namo Amidas.
Namo Amidas.
Namo Amidas.
Namo Amidas.
Namo Amidas.
Namo Amidas.
Namo Amidas. Namo Amidas. Namo Amidas.